Hey guys, I'm Rich. Welcome to Rich with Cars. On this week's video, we're going to be doing something super special. I have the opportunity of reviewing two cars from Aston Martin that have recently been released that have shared same powertrains and also contain the new interior from Aston Martin. I want to go over a few things and show you guys the differences and similarities between these two cars and show you in terms of which car is the right one for you. Like I said, they both share the twin turbo 4-liter V8 from AMG that's been modified by Aston Martin. And they also contain, like I said before, the same interior and infotainment system that Aston Martin had worked so hard to put out there and differentiate themselves from the other manufacturers. Of course, Aston Martin did a lot of R&D for that infotainment system, and now I would say that they've brought up the game to basically put themselves right up there with their competition. So guys, as always, I'm going to be going over some of the exterior, the interior, and most importantly, I want to show you guys the driving impressions of both of these gorgeous vehicles from Aston Martin. So as always guys, let's strap in and take a look. So let's get started first with the Aston Martin Vantage 2025 model year. We can see right here that the Vantage actually received a facelift that is very similar to what we see on what they did with the DB12. On the Vantage though, we can see that the headlights are a little bit shorter. They don't extend as much, for example, as they do on the DB12, but I've actually prefer the headlight treatment for the Vantage. We have some new air curtains over here in the front, and then of course the front lip spoiler. We can see a new design wheel. It's a multi-spoke with a laser cut, and it comes with 21-inch rims, and of course you see right behind it two-piece slotted rotors with a multi-piston caliper here in the front. The other thing also that I do like quite a bit is the treatment that they did here on the side sill or the side vent. And you can see now that it says Aston Martin on this portion right here in gloss black. It basically retains the same side profile as the previous generation Vantage. And this is much sportier than what it used to be. Why? Because of course we have a wider front, which I showed you guys a little bit here before. If you look at it from behind over here, or if you look at the back part over there, we also see that the rear haunches are a little bit wider. You can also see the accentuation there at the bottom part of the lip. And the reason why, once again, is to fit wider tires. Now, OEM, the Vantage comes with 325 rear section width. That is absolutely beastly. We see some minor facelift treatments, namely this rear portion right here, that basically goes with a wider portion of the rear bumper. And then the biggest thing of all for me is the fact that they put much larger tips for the exhausts. So if you look at it from a complete rear view, you could see the quad exhausts, and they actually protrude quite a bit more, and they're much more noticeable. Of course, it still retains the rear diffuser the way that it had it before, with the fins at the bottom and then the large opening in the middle of the diffuser. The DB12 is more of that GT vehicle, but of course, because of the improvements that they made versus the DB11, the DB12 is much more of a dual personality vehicle. It's now what they call the world's first ever super tourer. And of course, like I said before, it retains a lot of the stuff that the DB11 had, but now the DB12, like the Vantage, has a facelifted front with the new headlights, and then of course a new front bumper fascia as well. We have the air curtains over there that are also new and give it a different sort of look. It's very, very reminiscent, at least from my perspective, to the DBS, and it's got sort of a larger grille as well to suck in more air for that revised engine with bigger turbos. We have also multi-spoke with laser cutting, and then major thing that I see over here are the fact that these come with carbon ceramic brakes, and then you have a multi-piston front caliper This one is actually in red, as you guys can see. The profile, very reminiscent of what you see with the DB11, with a touch of sportiness as well. If I'm not wrong, the DB12 also received a wider treatment. So as you guys can see over here, these also now come in 325s straight out of the box. You guys can see from this rear 3/4 view that we got a little bit more width here on the rear. Accentuates the rear haunches, which I love. It basically kept the same rear treatment as the DB11. Would have been a little bit better in my opinion if it got quad exhausts, but since this is more of a classy segment of a vehicle, it's more of a GT car, you have the single exhaust housings or the single exhaust exits making a dual exhaust as opposed to a quad exhaust. Nevertheless though, it still looks gorgeous. You could clearly see that one is more of a GT versus the other being more of a sports car. And of course the Vantage now goes straight up head to head with the Porsche 911. I want to go around the vehicles to show you guys an overall look as we compare both side by side. That's the key. Sorry about that, guys, but it's wrapped. It's a brand new vehicle, so I can't take it off the wrap. But you guys can see that it's got the door lock, unlock, and then the trunk release. You got Aston Martin writing on here on the side, and then in the rear, you just basically have a physical key release over here, and Aston Martin once again on the side right there, and then of course the Aston Martin logo right on the top. So unlock the car, the door handles present themselves to you. So that's a difference now in the 2025 Aston Martin. And then let's do a quick overview. So we can see that the door card now has different door handles compared to the previous generation. And you got some window controls, and then you got gorgeous materials. You got leather all the way from top down to the bottom as well. Even here, the bottom part. The inside of this door card storage area is also lined in leather, and then you got some felt here right in the back. You got a little storage compartment right there where you put your hand, or where you actually grab the door to close. And then the other cool thing is that these are hydraulic doors, so you can put them at any level. Then of course this particular Vantage is trimmed with a white interior, very classy, very nice, with the Aston Martin wings on the headrest embroidery. And then you have really nice seating upholstery over here with some perforation, and then you got quite a bit of bolstering, but not too aggressive, to make it still comfortable enough to drive on long periods of time. So you have some bolstering here on the back, and then on the bottom as well you have the Aston Martin branding on the door sill, and then you got additional white leather on the underside of the steering column, alongside with the seat controls right there in traditional Aston Martin fashion. Let's take a deeper dive inside. Amazing noise coming out of that twin turbo V8. So now you guys see with the Aston Martin, I've already done a review on the new Vantage. I still haven't had the chance to drive it, so I'll show you guys that a little bit later on in the video. But if you missed that full deep dive review of the exterior and interior and the technology on the new 2025 Aston Martin Vantage, make sure to take a look at it. I'm gonna put up a link in the top of your screen, and you can take a look at that as well. You guys see a gorgeous 3-spoke steering wheel with some controls on your steering wheel as well that basically have some haptic touch. And then you have your metallic paddle shifters with a nice sort of spring load. And then of course you have the brand new Aston Martin gauge cluster that is in digital format. Some nice matte carbon fiber. And then this is the big thing on the new Aston Martin Vantage as well, is this infotainment screen alongside with the completely revamped interior as well. I love the fact that Aston Martin made a mix of physical buttons with a digital screen as well, instead of just completely destroying the interior layout with just digital screens and anything like that. So it's a great mix of digital and physical buttons as well. Very satisfying drive mode selector, as you can see over here. So it has like a nice, a nice feel to it as you're changing the drive modes. And then you have your gear selector, very nicely appointed. And then of course, as always, you have gorgeous materials throughout the cabin. As you can see, it's upholstered in leather with some nice stitching over here. And of course, this particular one has the Bowers & Wilkins sound system with it as well. Overall, if you guys take a look at this interior over here, it's a little bit more tight compared to the DB12, and I'll show you guys that very shortly. But you don't have any backseat space. You do have some cubby holes or storage compartment here in the rear. I like the fact that you have the Aston Martin logo there as well. Additional little cubby holes over here right behind the seats. And then of course, armrest in the middle, which gives you a bit of space. It's not too deep, but you do have your USB-C cables over here, or inputs, alongside with your regular cigarette style 12 volt input as well. So generally speaking, from the interior, it's a nice cozy interior. I wouldn't say it's super tight. It's comfortable enough to be taking on long drives. That's your key. It's almost identical. If not, it's actually identical to the Vantage key. Of course, you do have your lock, unlock, and then your trunk release on the side. You have Aston Martin writing on the back. It's pretty bare, alongside with your physical key release over here. Once again, Aston Martin writing on the other side, and then the Aston Martin logo that you have on the top, covered in glass. So if I unlock it, once again, the door handles do present themselves to you, and then of course the door mirrors also fold out. I've already done, once again, the review on the DB12 Coupe, and if you guys missed that one, I'm gonna put a link in the screen above so you guys can take a look at it as well. So this particular DB12, as always, gorgeous door cards. You have some nice stitching over here, and this particular one actually does have a very nice sort of dual contrast with the red and the black. You do have some piano black over here, the Bowers & Wilkins sound system speaker cover, your door mirrors, your door mirror and your window controls, and then you have some storage space over here. Surprisingly, given the fact that the Vantage is a smaller vehicle, it has similar, if not maybe even a little bit higher storage on the door card itself. Nevertheless, also new door handles, which are the same as you can see on the Vantage. You do have your door sill here showing DB12. On the Vantage, you see Aston Martin. But then, of course, taking a look at the seat, this seems to be a little bit less bolstered than the one on the Vantage. Still very, very nice. In fact, even nicer, because you have more stitching in terms of on the seat itself. And you guys can see that it's got perforation, stitching, and then it's got that little additional touch of these sort of, I guess you could say, piping, but in sort of like red circles to contrast the black. And then of course you have your headrest with the Aston Martin wings embroidered right there, and it's just really, really nice touch. Once again, very similar to the Vantage, you also have your seat controls right there in the middle. And then finally you have your headlight controls alongside with your brakes. So very, very similar layout to the Vantage. Let's take a look at the interior. Let's start it up. So we have a very similar gauge cluster over here and a very similar steering wheel. You guys can see that the steering wheel is essentially the same as you can see on the Vantage. 3-spoke steering wheel with the metallic paddle shifters right behind that. Same controls that you see with some haptic touch over there as well. And then you see also the gauge cluster that is also in digital. You do have the redesigned interior, exactly the same as I can see as you saw on the Vantage. So same layout, This has a different finish, of course. It's got a brushed aluminum sort of inlay over here. You have your gear control over here in the same manner, but this is not in a textured material. It's a gloss black. Once again, your drive mode selector, same feel. I love it. And then, of course, your start-stop button right in the middle, right there. Basically, a very, very similar layout. This, once again, has a Bowers & Wilkins sound system in it. And then, once again, you see gorgeous materials. It's upholstered all the way up on the dash in leather with some nice stitching. You got contrast stitching right here in red. And as we look around the interior of the DB12, we see a very, very similar layout than we saw in the Vantage. So this has a slightly deeper middle compartment. Of course, you have your USB-C inputs alongside with your 12-volt cigarette style outlet. Your cup holders right there. You have the same type of style with the glove compartment. So the button's right there, which opens, and it's basically the same glove compartment, same size as the Vantage. You have the rear seating space or rear seating area with your subwoofer right there in the middle. So you do have a little bit more space. You do have a little bit more flexibility in terms of if you want to, let's say, move the seats back, you can. And you guys can see that. So passenger can have a little bit more space over there. So it's all based on your taste and your requirements, your needs in terms of what you want. I'm going to show you guys, as I said before, in the driving impressions, how these two basically compare and contrast in regards to the driving impressions. But in terms of the interior layout, very, very, very similar. Except for the fact that in the DB12, since it is a larger vehicle, you do have a little bit more space on the inside because of the fact that you have the rear seating space right there, so you can actually move your front seats back. All right, guys, so driving the Aston Martin DB12, I've already driven this car before, so I have a pretty good idea of how it drives and how it feels, but just wanted to get a sort of like a refresh of the way that it feels compared to the Vantage, because that's what's going to be coming up next. So far, I have it on Sport Plus mode, and I can tell you right away that the engine is very responsive, and the transmission also is quite responsive, pretty quick to shift. I don't have it in manual mode right now. I just have it in basically automatic. Right away, I can tell you that on Sport Plus mode, the automatic transmission, like I said, I don't have it in manual mode. It's very, very responsive. I like the way that it's programmed. It shifts, as you guys can hear, pretty quickly. And even when I'm braking, it does downshift quite responsively as well. Right now it shows me what the gear is, even if I'm in automatic mode. Let's bring it down to third. And let's say I want to do a sudden acceleration. So it jumps right away to the second gear. And I mean, like, it's pretty responsive, to be honest with you guys. I love that engine note. That's what I love about this AMG twin turbo V8. Of course, it shares the same powertrain as in the Aston Martin Vantage, but this one has just a little bit more horsepower. If I'm not wrong, I think it's 671 horsepower. The way that the steering is not very hard to steer. It's still quite assisted, but it is very responsive, especially when it comes to Sport Plus mode. The brakes, it's a $14,500 option. Extremely expensive, but I mean, they bite. You have quite a bit of an initial bite on these brakes. Of course, like I said, these are carbon ceramics. I would probably opt for the steels, just because of the fact that the carbons are so expensive, and unless you actually take this to the track, I don't think it's necessary to go for the carbons. So yeah, acceleration on this is actually incredible. I was just in fourth gear. I'm still in manual mode, and even from fourth gear, you know, going at a slow speed of about 35 miles an hour, there was still quite a bit of torque to propel me forward by quite a bit. Actually, it's that's what I love about this engine, the AMG twin turbo V8. What they did also at Aston Martin is that they actually fitted it with larger turbos. And what it allows you to do is actually have a wider torque curve. I have it on Sport Plus mode, which basically has it on the hardest suspension setting, and I can't say it's uncomfortable. Like, you can definitely go long distance with this. It's actually not bad at all. It's super comfortable. Yeah, and I can say that the transmission is actually pretty good. I wouldn't say it's dual clutch good or even, like, let's say PDK good. But wow, the suspension is super compliant in this. Yeah, this is definitely a car that you can live with on a daily basis, especially when you're doing, like, let's say city driving, and you can even do long distances with this. I mean, it's really, really comfortable, even when you have it in Sport Plus mode. And when you wanna flip it into something more comfortable, you can definitely daily drive this. It's a very comfortable and dual personality vehicle. I do think that Aston Martin did well in terms of calling this a world's first super tourer, because it does have a true dual personality. So let's see how the Vantage fares up against this. All right, guys. So driving the new 2025 Aston Martin Vantage. This is the facelifted version, and it's also got the revised engine from AMG, that 4-liter twin turbo V8 that is actually shared with the DB12. But it actually gives a little bit less output. This one particularly has 656 horsepower versus the DB12's 671. The first thing that I realized, or that I noticed right away compared to the DB12, the engine note. I get a little bit more engine note on this than I do in the DB12, naturally, because this is more of a sporty drive. And the steering assistance on this, like, when I say assistance, like the feel, it's actually a little bit harder. I'm in sport mode right now, which is like the softest setting, if you want to call it. And I can also tell you that the suspension's a little bit firmer, and this is on the softest setting right now. But right away you can tell that this car is a little bit livelier, a little bit sportier, and you get to feel that straight away from the steering itself and the suspension as well. I'm not saying it's uncomfortable, it's just a little bit firmer. It's definitely compliant. I haven't been able to drive this in an aggressive manner, or in a sort of sporty manner, let's say in back roads. But at least from city driving, the feeling that I get right away is that it's a sportier environment than the DB12. I like this quite a bit, to be honest. And it feels nimbler as well, naturally, because it's a smaller vehicle. Not only smaller, but it's also a lighter vehicle. I'll put up the weight of this car on the screen for you guys, and I'll compare that also to the DB12 in terms of its weight. Once again, being the same transmission that you get in the DB12, it's fast. It's not dual clutch fast. It's not even PDK fast. I think it's good enough for, city driving, and I would even assume for track driving as well. The interior living space over here, of course, you don't have any back seats in the Vantage, but the front over here, it doesn't feel that much smaller than the DB12, to be completely honest with you guys. Of course, like I said, you don't have any back seats, so you can't put small duffel bags or anything like that. Wow. Wow. There's a lot of power in this. Oh my God. That was almost full throttle. I would say 4/5 throttle, and oh my God. You definitely feel the G-forces in this. I think the engine that this shares with the DB12 definitely feels much more powerful in the Vantage, just because it's a smaller package. Oh my God. You definitely get a more exhilarating drive in the Vantage than you do in the DB12. Brake feel, it's actually quite good. Yeah, this one doesn't have the carbon ceramics, so that's why I find that the brake feel in this is a little bit less of a bite. It's easier to get used to. And I'd probably go with that myself, to be honest. Let's stick this into neutral because I'm in the tunnel right now, and I want to give you guys a few revs. It's like gunshots. It's amazing. I love this. Don't you love that? And this is like stock. This is straight from the factory. It's incredible. I mean, you don't get this with a DB12. You definitely get much more emotion in the Vantage than you do with a DB12. That's without a doubt. I guess you guys can tell from my reactions which one I prefer after driving it and getting some of the feel of the drive. Definitely the Vantage. And that's probably because I'm closer to a sportier sort of intent when I drive, and also I prefer sportier cars. I'm not saying that the DB12 doesn't have a sporty side to it, but this one definitely has that extra notch of sportiness. Would I take this over a 911 Turbo? I haven't driven a 911 Turbo, but I can tell you, at least from the emotion that you get out of the engine, probably this. I mean, 911 Turbo is a scalpel. It's extremely fast. It's a rocket ship. But at the end of the day, where are you going to use that speed? Unless you're actually going to be tracking that car as a daily car that you're going to be driving in the city, on back roads. I don't think you'll be able to extract all the performance of a 911 Turbo S, for example, unless you're a professional driver. Most regular people like myself, I wouldn't be able to extract that out of a 911 Turbo S, nor would I be able to extract it out of this Vantage. So why not get something that gives you more soul and smiles? I mean, that alone right there is enough to get me to get into something like this, as opposed to an 911 Turbo S. Compared to the DB12 though, like I said, I prefer the smaller feel and the package over the DB12. I personally prefer that. Now it depends what kind of consumer you are. If you're looking for something where you can drive more comfortably and then get a bit of a sportier side to it, don't get me wrong, like I said, I would say that the DB12 is more of a car with dual personalities than this. This is more on the sporty spectrum, and if you want to have more comfort, you're not going to have it as much as you do in the DB12. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick comparison of two gorgeous cars. The Aston Martin Vantage 2025 model year, which has been facelifted, and also the Aston Martin DB12, which has also been facelifted. These two cars share a lot of similarities, but also are different in their own ways. Of course, like I said before, in terms of design and in terms of performance as well. So it's a matter of, what are you looking for at the end of the day? If you were to ask me, I'd probably go for the Vantage just because it's smaller, a little bit more compact, more maneuverable, and a little bit more fun to drive. Now, don't get me wrong, the DB12 is a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. So when you want to have that more of a relaxed type of drive and comfort, and then you want to basically put it into a Sport Plus and go into manual mode, you also get that benefit as well. But I personally prefer the Vantage because you get performance all the time, anytime, and it was such a nice vehicle and fun car to drive. But if you're lucky enough to be able to crush up these two, at the end of the day, it really comes down to picking your poison, and that's basically it. So once again, I want to give a huge thanks to Aston Martin of Orlando for giving me the opportunity to test out these two cars back to back. Super fortunate, and I had a great time. Make sure to check out their website, check out their information that I'm going to put in the description below. They're going to have most likely these cars available in their inventory. But as always, guys, I want to thank you for all the views, all the likes. Make sure to comment below with anything that you are opinionating on these two cars, and make sure to share this with your friends as well. So guys, as always, thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next one. All right, take care. Bye-bye.